I'm talking with Shaahin Cheyene, who is a long-term entrepreneur, a great friend of mine, and he dabbles in all kinds of businesses. I mean, it ranges from vaping, believe it or not. He was one of the inventors of the common vape product that you see today, to looking at tools to enhance your brain, your performance, even dabbling in things like Amazon. But the area that he is super excited about, and he's been putting a lot of attention in his time into, is the podcast world. But not being a podcaster, but helping podcasters out, or people that want to get on podcasts. Help us out, Shaahin. What am I talking about?
So most people are like, well, I'd love to do a podcast, right? They'll watch Joe Rogan, they'll watch Lex Friedman or Andrew Huberman. They'll be like, man, I'm just like one of those guys. Let me do a podcast. And they do a podcast or they attempt one and they realize two things. Thing number one, it's a lot of friggin' work. Right? You got to set it up. You got to get the guests. You got to get the right guests. Yeah, and amazing fact, by the way, Joe Rogan, who does 3-hour interviews, some of those are 5 or 6-hour interviews. And it's only in the last 30 minutes when he gets to the really good stuff. So as you know, and I widely consider you as the father of podcasts. I remember you inventing the podcast a long time ago, and we could talk about that later. We discovered an easier way with Podcast Cola, where most people don't know this. Did you know you can hire a podcast booking agency like us, and we will just get you on shows. We will just get you as a guest on other people's shows, and then you just got to do two things. Thing number one, show up. Thing number two, be freaking awesome. Be you. And it's so much easier. And it's so much better for your SEO, for your brand.
Yeah, that's what I want to go with. I want to talk about, real quick, this term called earned and unearned media, okay? Unearned media is paid advertising. It means you basically get paid to be there. Earned media, which is the best, that's when a reputable third party talks about you, writes about you, interacts with you, okay? So you're talking about what really is called earned media. Super important. But the problem with a lot of podcasts, tell me if I'm wrong, maybe it's changed, it doesn't SEO well because there's no transcript of what's happening. Has that changed?
That's changed a lot, particularly with AI. So a lot of people will call Podcast Cola and say, hey, I want to hire the best podcast booking agency. They'll call Podcast Cola, which is our company, and we'll get them booked on these podcasts. Now, what's happened now, because before you'd have to get a transcript, you'd have to put it up. Otter does all that. All the AI does all that. Even Riverside that we're on now, Zoom, they all do it. So they transcribe it. The shows will put that transcription up. And if you're smart, I tell people this is one of the greatest hacks. You should have a blog at the end of your site anytime you talk to anybody on Zoom, and you should use keywords like I've done just in the last 2 minutes. Podcast booking agency, best podcast booking agency. You say those words that you want to rank for. You make sure you do. You have that transcript. Then you get a VA or you use an AI program. You put some pictures on the thing that you did, you change it into an article, and you put that on the back of your site. First, it's human language. So I'm talking to you in a way that the AIs don't exactly get yet. So the AIs will distinguish it as human language rather than something that's generated by a natural language model. And that's going to rank really high, not just on Google, but also the latest thing that you and me were talking about is the search engine optimization for these GPTs. The most powerful way is to be a guest on podcasts using the best podcast booking agency.
Okay. Does it matter if it's audio or video? Is one better than the other?
Yeah, so you and me talked about this earlier. The majority of humans, more than Apple Podcasts, more than Spotify now, are at YouTube, and most people consume podcasts on YouTube. So if you are not doing video, you are missing out. And I still talk to the odd podcast. I say it's less than 10% that's just doing audio, and I think it's a losing proposition. Why would you miss out on the biggest platform like in the universe? I'm a podcast guy. I got every app on my phone. I've got Podcast Addict, Apple. I've got an Apple device just for Apple Podcasts. I do Google, all that. I still prefer YouTube. It's just an easier interface.
So give us some statistics then. As you look at this whole podcast industry, How much has it changed? Is it still US dominated? Are we looking at major changes where other countries are starting to jump out? Is it still crime being the number one when it comes to podcasts? Give us some stats.
It's crazy, right? True crime is one of the biggest, I would say at the very least, the biggest sort of like the bridge fiction and nonfiction, right? The biggest like narrative podcast. There's a great one called Casual Criminalist. I've got nothing to do with it, but he's really, really good. But when you look into it, that guy's got like 10 or 12 like award-winning podcasts. And so now what we're seeing is we're seeing networks. So you got networks like Gimlet, networks like Wondery, which was bought out for some crazy, I think like billion by Amazon. And these networks are putting out movie quality content as far as narrative goes. And at times they're paying, I've heard of $1 million an episode for some of these podcasts, which is, I mean, unbelievable. But, it just shows you the power of podcasting. If you're talking about the sort of like nonfiction, non-narrative end of things, you've got, Joe Rogan, obviously, and the Andrew Hubermans. But, the craziest thing when you look at the top of the charts, do you know what like 3 of the top 10, it's a category you wouldn't guess.
Categories. Well, we know that true crime is number 1. Is puzzles within the top 10?
Religion.
Okay.
Like
Religion.
number 3 on the Apple charts was some guy, beautiful music, singing the Quran, the Muslim Quran, and then there were 3 other after him that were like, Christian, church kind of stuff. I could
understand that. I could understand religion being high up there. I mean, look at Joel Osteen by himself, right? Joel has no, I'm being serious. He's got a very popular podcast, right? Because he records a show. How about self-help, finance, crypto, travel? Are those just kind of falling on the wayside, or are you seeing an upsurge or something?
No, I mean, I think it's the thing that's killing Audible, right? Audible sales have been down dramatically. Remember, we used to all get audiobooks, be like, dude, have you read this book? You'd be like, no, man, but I got the Audible, whatever. Now everyone's just listening to the podcast. If you want to be an authority in your space, don't write a book, like just go on podcasts. It's quicker, less work, ranks faster. I mean, reading's dead. Nobody reads anymore, which is insane. But you look at this generation.
Statistics saying that reading has dropped dramatically. You're right.
Yeah, and I thought about it, and I was really disappointed about that because I'm a reader and I love reading. But then I thought, hey, what difference does it make if we're still consuming information and we have access to absorbing that information quicker and taking more actionable steps from that information? So I'm kind of coming to peace with the fact that reading is dead. I mean, honestly, like when you read a book, a lot of the times you read it, a lot of it's kind of out of this like feeling of obligation, right? Like I've opened this freaking thing. Now I gotta get through it, right? And you already got what you got out of it in the first 10 pages.
Do you think that there's going to be a change in podcasting as we move forward? Is it going to be a different experience, or is it going to be what we've been going through, where you're watching it on a device? Will it change in some ways? Will it become more AI driven, where like Spotify tells me a good playlist because it watches what I like to listen to? Will we have the same thing when it comes to podcasts?
So we did something crazy, I'll tell you. And the answer is yes. So I had a sales funnel, right? And our sales funnel, I think, by the way, if you're not using podcasts as part of your sales funnel, you're missing out on a huge amount. So we started calling people being like, hey, man, we've got the best podcast booking agency in the country. Would you like to be featured on podcasts, right? And we would get, 20%, 30% conversion. And I thought, well, that means 70% of people, 80% of people are just hanging up saying no. Then we changed the pitch. We said, would you like to be a guest on our podcast? We've got 100,000 subscribers. The podcast is called Business Story of the Week. We actually do have a good podcast. You remember Josh was hosting it. And I started doing it. I realized we were getting 98% of people would say yes. Why? Everybody wants to be famous. Everybody feels like they should be on a podcast. We get them on the podcast. Then we would sell them the service. Then it would be natural. I've talked to you for an hour. We're buddies now. We've got that intimacy, that knowledge, that friendship, authority, trust, all those elements of influence are built. So then I thought, okay, well, what's the bottleneck with that? Well, there's only one Shaahin. Right? And each interview takes me an hour to get to know these people. I'm not going to be able to do a lot of these a day. So then I thought, let me outsource it. So I hired a show host from the Philippines and got him to do it. And he was great. But again, now you only got one guy's time. So what we did was we started doing the same thing, but I hired 20 VAs and I pre-recorded the interview questions. So now a VA that didn't even speak English would get the person on and they would show a video of me. And it would be like, John, so great to see you. We're going to ask you some questions. Feel free to answer, as you see fit. And then the questions would start. The person would do the interview. I wouldn't even be there. And at the end, the footage would go to an editor. It would go on the site and we'd send it to them. And then the sales process would start. So this is a great hack for anybody who wants to use podcasts in your sales funnel. Now, the next step with this, and we're building it out, is that we have an AI app using an AI avatar that's going to interview you for the show. Not only that, it's going to take the footage, it's going to cut it, it's going to make viral clips, it's going to take the transcript as an AI agent, put it on the back end of a website, and make that searchable not only for Google SEO, but for all the natural language models to find. And in this way, now we can talk to 1,000 clients a day. And if we got 30% conversion, it's going to be fantastic. And we're building this out for our clients at Podcast Cola. So I think it's only getting better.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Is there such a thing as a bad podcast?
Oh my God, I've been on so many. Look, Ken, what you do is a rare art, right? You don't see it because it's natural to you, right? Ever since I've known you, this is natural to you. Most people are really, really poor at interviewing people. And the main reason is they don't understand that a good part of it is just shutting up and let the person speak. Like, just be quiet and try to understand what this person says, but also researching your guest. You are meticulous at that. You're two things. You're one, very intuitive. You pick up on things where I'm like, Jesus, this guy, like you just know. I don't know how you know, but you're very intuitive, but you're also very well researched. You understand the thing that you want to draw out of that person. And that's what separates a good interviewer and a master. And you're at mastery at that level. The majority of people are not at mastery.
So what's a bad podcast then?
Oh my God. I've had people who have me on who are like, okay, so what do you do now? And I'm like, dude, like we send out a full 1 page. We send out a full deck. Like there's no reason. I send out clips. My team writes letters to people. That's a bad interviewer. A bad interviewer also is somebody who's like, I think super formal and just can't relax, who only has recorded questions. I mean, I could do that. My AI would do that better than them. So I think it's primarily a factor of preparedness and also just, are you human? Are you a real person? Can I relate to you?
Last question. So if somebody really feels like they deserve to be on the top-notch podcasts, and I'm going to guess a few of them, like you mentioned already, Lex Fridman, Joe Rogan, I'm going to say Diary of a CEO is another one. What are other podcasts that people really want to get on to get some type of traction and visibility?
All right. So for 99% of the people, you're not going to do it, right? You're not going to get on Joe Rogan. You're not going to get on Lex Fridman. I know you think you're great. I know you think your story is amazing, right? Joe Rogan has a very specific niche. We actually built an algorithm and we had the website up and it was that would tell you the percentage of probability that you could be on Joe Rogan's show. And we were using that as a lead funnel for a minute. And you'd be amazed at the things that were a factor. One is, are you involved in UFC or the MMA? Are you related to his friends or other shows? Are you a comedian or an actor? Have you published a New York Times best-selling book? And there was we put in 25 fields of input, and you would be shocked at the majority of people. And then what we did is we took his last 500 guests, and we found commonalities in all those guests, and we put it into the algorithm to determine what your statistical probability was of being on that show. And I'll tell you, not a single person who thought they could be on his show had more than a 1% chance. So it's kind of like, look, I had a friend who was like, you know what? I'm going to come to LA and be an actress. She came to LA to be an actress. She said, hey, I want to be in, huge movies. And, she got a role. And she was like, I want to win an Academy Award. She won an Academy Award. I won't mention names. And I was like, okay, that could happen. There's a million girls prettier than her, a million girls better acting than her, a million girls have all this other stuff, but she did it, right? For the majority of people, you're not going to get, it's the equivalent of getting on that a role in a Tom Cruise film. It's the equivalent of that, right? Like, is it impossible? No. Like, everything is possible. Absolutely.
But if you design yourself over a decade, there's a chance. If you design the process and actually,
Sure.
But going back to this, like a Joe Rogan or a mutual friend, Dave Asprey, in some cases, there's a pay to play. You can pay to get on some of these to actually create a fast track. Do you have any idea of what the cost is for some of these podcasts?
Yeah, sure. So, for example, at Podcast Cola, we very specifically encourage our guests never to pay to be on a podcast. I don't believe in it. I think it erodes journalism. I know you've never taken money to have somebody on any one of your shows, and I really respect that about you. That really says a lot about your integrity.
Never have, and I never will.
Yeah, but I wouldn't. I've never paid. Some shows, like mid-tier shows, are now charging 50 grand. Some of the big names. I mean, I've seen even not big names. I'd say they're mid-tier shows. Like I'll give you one that I saw on a price list. I don't know if he's still doing it or not, but I just saw it on somebody's price list. Is Lewis Howell. Somebody was selling that for $50,000 a show. It's terrible ROI and a bad idea to ever pay to be on anybody's show. And look, if a client wants to do it, I will. We as Podcast Cola, we have to present their offer to the show, but the real shows aren't going to have you. Rogan, it doesn't matter how much money you have. You give him $1 billion, he's not going to have you on.
You're right.
Lex is not going to have you on. Huberman's not going to have you on. Some of the mid-tier shows that are like somebody who knows them, sure, you can, money will get anything. But the better strategy is what we do at Podcast Cola, which is get on a bunch of micro influencer shows. So, the thing is, like, do you just want your ego stroked to say, hey, I was on Rogan? Or do you want to achieve an objective? Right? And then if you want to just achieve an objective, what's that objective and how do we achieve it? And you might find out that being on 5 mid-tier shows that are targeted to the demographic that you want to hit, maybe they're CEOs of Fortune 50 companies, that shows that they listen to, maybe a show like How I Built This with Guy Raz, a fantastic show, much more accessible if you are at that level, would do better for you than being on a Joe Rogan show. And if you can come to that realization, and like you said, it takes time. Most of our clients are on for 2-3 years. Sometimes it takes 6 months. Sometimes it takes a year before you start hitting the mid-tier shows regularly. But the way that someone like Chris Voss, a mutual friend of ours, right, the FBI hostage negotiator, he didn't become who he is overnight. It took years. And even for Chris, triple-time New York Times bestseller, top Amazon list. I mean, he's been on the #1 Amazon list, like, I think 5 years going. Like, his book sells like crazy. And it took him several months to start hitting mid-tier.
He hasn't even been on the Joe Rogan show yet, and he's got the #1 masterclass. I know
we're
it's
working
amazing.
on it. We're working on it. He's going to get on.
People want to find out. I don't really remember the name of the company. Can you remind us one more time?
Sure. Smart ass. So podcastcola.com is the best way if you want to be booked on podcasts. If you want to become a YouTube influencer, it's viralmirage.com. We do that. If you're interested in search engine optimization for ChatGPT models, or natural language models of any kind, reach out to us. We're doing some pretty innovative work there. And my personal website, ShaahinCheyene.com. I'm sure Ken will include it in the notes.
We'll put it in the notes. And of course, always selling. He's always ABC and always be closing. That's what Shaahin's doing. Shaahin, thanks a lot for hanging out. I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate you, Ken. Thanks for having me on, man.